So I made another video after coaching 100 people, which also got pretty interesting feedback. So I thought I'd make another one, coaching 200 people with the more interesting learnings. Also from these people that I coached, but also in the past year or so, also from the many comments here on YouTube. The first thing I wanted to talk about is telephone screens are a gamble. Like this is my experience. I've coached many incredibly talented candidates. I've coached also not so qualified candidates who actually pass these telephone screens. But the main point I want to make here is that it's not that the recruiters are doing a poor job, but more often than not, the employers are not being transparent enough on what they're actually looking for from these roles. So that's why, more often than not, these telephone screens are a gamble. So either you get a volume-based approach, either you take it as a one-off, but at least I thought this you should know. Second one, consensus building. Consensus building is the deadliest trap in interviews, especially with Amazon. Now, what is consensus building? I'll make a separate video on this one, but briefly, it's a quote here: "A camel is a horse designed by a committee." So I believe this would be the relevant statement. Number 3, exceptional candidates who do well in the on-site interviews do actually get the job, and if not from the first one, there's actually a mini loop that they'll invite you 2 months later, and usually it goes well. It goes like this. So it is actually a good idea to do well in an on-site interview, so they see that you prepare. Even if you're the second fit for that role, they will call you 2 months later. Number 4, so long as you're a qualified candidate, the difference is often made on job fit. Like, truth be said, many of you who go for these on-site interviews are prepared to a certain extent, so the difference is made on job fit. Now, up to you to find what that's supposed to, what they're actually looking for on this. And I'll touch upon this a little bit later as well. Number 5, if you got rejected more than twice in separate experiences, your chances will significantly decrease to get subsequent interviews, at least for a certain period of time. I don't know, 1 year or a long period of time. Number 6, yes, depending on the region that you're applying for, there is more or less transparency in these roles. For example, candidates in the Seattle area are more likely to receive questions and the principles they'll be screened on, whereas candidates in continental Europe will not receive as much information. So take it for what it's worth, and I would like to highlight here that this information, if they give you the questions that you're most likely going to get asked, is not by far an indicator of success in an interview. So it's just a matter of different regions have different habits. And this is how you should put it. A very important note here: if you push your recruiter to give you examples of questions, I would say that's a very unreliable source of preparation for an on-site interview, simply because they are only speculating for these things. Number 7. So especially during these times where all the interviews are held remotely, there are many people who are actually super talented and coming up with ingenious ways to cheat in these interviews and have many answers prepared. And some of them are actually successful. Very few of them, but there are some who are successful employing this approach. Prep times vary quite wildly. While I made a statistic, in my opinion, it's around 2-3 weeks, the average prep time for these interviews. I know people who prepared 2 days for a very senior role and actually land the job. I know people who prepared 6 months, and actually they say that also here on YouTube, at least once, prepared 6 months, and actually also it was successful outcome. So these prep times vary wildly. There are a ton of, number 9, there are a ton of candidates who have no idea what they know and what they don't. They cannot self-assess themselves. And this is very counterintuitive, especially for technical candidates, but a very important step. If you want more details, I uploaded another video, do what you can't. So search for that if you're looking for more details. Number 10, cheat sheets are wildly overrated. So many people don't know how to build these cheat sheets and don't know how to take advantage of this. So if you don't know this, then better don't do it, So if you're not an expert in these things. Number 11, coming across as arrogant. It is a huge issue, especially for Eastern Europe candidates. So I would very much recommend you. I have another video on I versus we, which I would highly recommend you to watch if you want to know more details or if you fall into this category that you might come across as arrogant. Number 12. Yes, this is a hard one. So I don't know any candidate passing through a stress period who actually got the job. Now, to be clear here, I'm very proud to have helped candidates passing through some very difficult times. Through, they've been seriously ill and that stuff, and some of them, might have had stress problems in the past, but if you're passing through a stress period, stay away from interviewing so long as you're contagious. Right. Number 13. The size of your CV, so long as it's a resume of your experience, does not matter. It only matters at the screening round, the CV filtering round, if you want. I know people with very long CVs and with very short CVs that got a job. This is not the main thing. Often people spend too much time overthinking these things for an on-site interview. Number 14, the writing sample does matter, but the sooner you send it, the better it is, and the more concise usually as well. Number 15, overthinking the behavioral questions is common practice. So many people prepare this, get some sort of tunnel vision, you must prepare the behavioral. This is the main attraction here is to prepare the quality of the questions, not the quantity. So if you want, I just uploaded the video with a sample mock on-site interview, so you can test yourself with using those questions or do a role play with someone. But the main attraction is quality over quantity. So many people over obsess over these things and prepare things reactively rather than proactively. Very important. Number 16, recruiters are not expert on-site interviewers. I know many of you rely and expect recruiters to be extremely helpful and to help you with a ton of questions for these interviews, and I touched upon this also earlier, but the truth of the matter is they're not experts in on-site interviews. They are, at the beginning of the hiring funnel. So take their advice, but take it, at the real value, right? So your preparation, what you actually prepare for the interview is what really matters. They can only recommend stuff, and oftentimes it's not as reliable as you might think. They don't know what you're gonna get asked in these interviews. Some people learn this the hard way. Number 17, there's no bias towards race, sex, nationality, international candidates, whatever else. And if you even think of this being the case, you're probably not going to perform well in a company such as Amazon in the first place. Number 18, if they reject you and give you 6 months to 1 year ban, it means you've done something really wrong. And I would very much recommend you to do a post-mortem after that interview, to really think, to go through all that stuff, maybe contact someone there, maybe you have some friends there, and try to see what went wrong. Usually there's something that went really wrong if they reject you for so long, because the tradition is that you can reapply immediately. 19, job descriptions are wildly overrated. They are nothing more than a marketing manifesto nowadays. So don't rely too much on that information. It's good, to make an exercise, to make some questions to role play for. Yes, that's fine, but nothing more than that. Candidates, employers don't tell you what they're actually looking for there. So you should be aware. And finally, number 20, I think I've said this one also when I've done the 100 milestone. I still hear many candidates who say, then it was the perfect interview, I'm confident it will be a formality to get this job. I am yet to find one who actually got the job who said this. So there's no such thing as the perfect interview, and the best strategy I know, it's in a way to be cautiously optimistic at all points. So there you go, these were the 20 main learnings, and again I also have another video which I'll link in the video description with the other things I learned after coaching 100 candidates. Thank you.